Tomorrow morning, the Senate will vote on the nomination of Colorado Supreme Court Justice Allison Ide. She is going to be voted on to serve on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. She's an eminently qualified and exceptional nominee who has received widespread bipartisan praise and support. Justice Ide has spent over a decade on the Colorado Supreme Court. Before her appointment, she served as the Colorado State Solicitor General. In that role, she represented the state before both federal and state courts. She also served as a tenured faculty member at the University of Colorado School of Law, where she taught courses in constitutional law, legislation, and torts. Justice Ide also practiced commercial and appellate litigation at Arnold and Porter. At the beginning of her legal career, Justice Ide served as a clerk for Judge Jerry Smith on the Fifth Circuit and as a law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Justice Ide was raised by a single mother, who Ide credits for her significant personal and professional achievements. She earned a scholarship to Stanford and graduated with distinction and is a member of Phi Beta Kappa. Justice Ide received her law degree from the University of Chicago, where she graduated with high honors and Order of the Coif. She has had an impressive legal career and an impressive life story. In her long and celebrated tenure on the Colorado Supreme Court, Justice Ide has heard roughly 900 cases and written approximately 100 opinions. In 2008, 75% of Colorado voters retained Justice Ide to the Colorado Supreme Court. Her nomination has also received wide bipartisan support. As an example, Justice Ide, former clerks who noted that they, quote, come from a diverse set of geographic, economic, cultural, and political backgrounds, end of quote, wrote a letter to the Judiciary Committee supporting her nomination. Judges work closely with their law clerks every day. Law clerks understand a judge's deliberative process and that judges approach to the law better than anyone. And how did these clerks describe Justice Ide? So I have a quote here, a quote. They said, "She never failed to provide her full attention and dedication to each individual case, mastering the relative facts and carefully analyzing the law, whether the text of the statute or the word of a contract," end of quote. Her law clerks also wrote that she goes, and I quote again, "where the law takes her," end of quote. And in their decade of collective experience in the over 900 cases, Justice Ide, quote, treats each case individually without any preconceived notion of desired outcome, end of quote. The National Native American Bar Association also endorsed Justice Ides. In their letter to the committee, they noted that she has, quote, demonstrated deep understanding of federal Indian law and policy matters, as well as significant respect for the tribes as governments. Such qualities and experiences are rare among nominees to the federal bench, end of quote. They went on to note that, quote, while we do not expect that Justice Ides will agree with tribal interests on every issue, we also believe that she is immensely well qualified, and we are confident that Justice Ide is a mainstream, common sense Westerner who will rule fairly on Indian country matters, End of quote from the National Native American Bar Association. I think mainstream, common sense Westerner is the perfect way to describe Justice Ide. Despite this bipartisan support and her professional achievements, yet all the Democratic members of the Judiciary Committee voted against her nomination in committee. And I expect most of the minority will vote against her confirmation when it comes up. That surprised me. Justice Ide received a majority well-qualified rating from the American Bar Association, an outside group which group evaluates judicial nominees. My colleagues on the other side claim that this group's rating weighed very heavily in their decision to support or oppose a judicial nominee. In fact, my Democratic colleagues claim that these ratings should carry a great deal of weight with senators, and they argue the Judiciary Committee shouldn't hold hearings on nominees who have not yet received an ABA ratings. But this week, we're voting on 4 Circuit Court nominees, including 3 women who received well-qualified ratings from the ABA. The American Bar Association rated 2 of these individuals unanimously well-qualified. Yet, the vast majority of my Democratic colleagues voted against the 2 nominees on whom we have already voted. And I'm willing to bet that the other 2 nominees will see similar opposition from my Democratic colleagues. So then, why do my Democratic friends profess such admiration for the American Bar Association's evaluation process and then vote against nominees who received the American Bar Association's quote-unquote well-qualified rating? I'd like to see them put their money where their mouth is, or maybe better yet, their vote where their mouth is. If my colleagues believe so strongly in the ABA evaluations, they should start voting for nominees who receive well-qualified ratings. But again, I suspect they will not. When the Judiciary Committee voted on Justice Ide's nomination, my Democratic colleagues really stretched to find reasons to oppose that nomination. One of the chief reasons given for opposition of her nomination centered on a quote in the Denver Post article that said Justice Ide has, quote, earned a reputation of one of the Colorado Supreme Court's most conservative members, end of quote. I find that statement to be misleading. Of the 7 justices on the Colorado Supreme Court, Justice Ide is one of only 2 justices appointed by a Republican governor. To argue that she's somehow extreme just because she was not appointed by a Democratic governor is very unfair. Furthermore, the Denver Post published a subsequent article that disagreed with this characterization. By contrast, the more recent article stated, quote, appointments by a Republican or Democrat does not always dictate the ideology of the justice, even categorizing justices as either conservative or liberal is generally an issue, end of quote. I would agree with the Denver Post on this point. Justice Ide should not be evaluated by her ideological reputation, but rather by how she approaches issues before her judiciary. This is how I have evaluated Justice Ide's and other judicial nominees, and that is why I strongly support her confirmation today. I'm very proud to support the nomination of Justice Allison Ide. She is the third of a series of distinguished female circuit court nominees that we've had the opportunity to vote on this week. Her impressive experience and numerous accomplishments speak to her qualifications for this role. I commend the President for nominating these outstanding and accomplished women to our circuit courts. Justice Ide is an exceptional nominee, and her record overwhelmingly supports her nomination. As a result, I will support her confirmation tomorrow, and I urge all of my colleagues to do the same.